The cemetery gates creaked in the wind as the last umbrellas vanished into a gray afternoon. 7-year-old Lily Matthews stood beside a fresh grave, rain threading through her thin black dress, a worn teddy bear clutched to her chest. The headstone said what her heart could not: James Matthews, beloved father. Behind her stood Victoria Matthews, 34, expensive coat, practiced grief. When the final prayer faded, the performance ended. With a flicker of something cold behind careful mascara, she slid off her wedding ring and tucked it into her purse as if setting down a roll she'd grown bored of. Then came the sound that would follow Lily for years, high heels clicking on wet stone, approaching like a verdict. "Pack your things when we get home," Victoria said, voice like glass. "You're not my responsibility anymore." Lily blinked, confusion drowning her tears. "Mama Victoria," she whispered. "Where am I supposed to go?" Victoria's smile was a small cruelty. "Don't call me that. Your father is dead. The charade is over. I came for the house and the accounts, never for you." The world tilted. Mr. Buttons, the teddy from her real mother, felt suddenly heavier in Lily's arms, like the last thread keeping her from falling. "But Daddy said, your father believed fairy tales," Victoria hissed. "I don't." A call followed, sweet voice, careful eyes. "Mrs. Henderson?" "So tragic, so sudden. I simply can't care for Lily tonight. Tomorrow morning?" "Oh, well, she'll manage." She ended with a 20 dropped into a puddle. "For dinner. Don't come to the house. Locks are already changed. Suitcase by the door till sunrise, then it's charity." And she walked away, heels clicking, Mercedes purring, the taillights smearing red across rain. Lily sank to her knees beside the grave, mud swallowing her shoes, grief swallowing her breath. Whispered voices rose from distant mourners, but no one came, until a cane tapped near and an elderly man with kind eyes bent toward her. "Where are your parents, child?" "My daddy is here," Lily said, touching the soaked grass. "And the lady who said she loved me went home without me. He called the police." Officer Sarah Martinez arrived with lights painting the stones blue and red, steady, warm, and angry in a way that meant protection, not danger. She knelt, met Lily's eyes, and listened. The story poured out in hiccups: the lock change, the 20, the lie of love. Sarah's jaw tightened. She guided Lily into the cruiser and into a room at the station with crayons, soft chairs, and a clean blanket that didn't smell like rain. Hot chocolate steamed on a table. The officer asked careful questions, not to trap Lily but to build a bridge out of the storm. Hours scraped by. The picture sharpened, the stepmother's affection cooling as James's health declined, the whispered phone calls, the sudden interest in wills, policies, signatures. "Did she hurt you?" Sarah asked. "She stopped hugging me," Lily said. "Sometimes she forgot dinner. She said things would be over soon." A phone rang. Sarah's face darkened. She stepped out, returned with truth that cut cleaner than the wind. "Victoria filed to relinquish guardianship 3 weeks ago," she said gently. "She planned today." Lily stared at Mr. Buttons. He looked threadbare but brave. "What happens to me now?" A kind couple could take her for the night. Paperwork would shape tomorrow. But just before Lily left, the station doors opened at 10:47 p.m. and a tall man in a rain-slick suit stepped in carrying a leather briefcase and a promise. He spoke softly with Sarah, produced sealed documents, and then came to Lily's level like someone who understood that collapsing to the floor makes sense when the world has fallen first. "I'm Alexander Stone," he said. "Your father's friend. He asked me to find you." Lily blinked. Somewhere in her memories, Sunday mornings, laughter in the kitchen, there had been an Alex her father trusted. "Are you the Alex he liked like a brother?" "Yes," the man said, smiling in a way that made space around the pain. "And I made him a promise." Sarah reviewed the papers, a contingency guardianship naming Alexander if Victoria ever failed in her duties. Victoria had read the parts that interested her and ignored the safeguard that was never meant for her. Alexander produced one more envelope, Lily's name on it, in her father's calm handwriting, the paper carrying a faint echo of his cologne and hospital soap. Lily opened it with tremble care. The letter was simple enough for a 7-year-old to read and heavy enough to anchor a life. If you're reading this, little star, I'm not there to hug you. But my love did not end. Alex will help you grow brave. Ask him about the treehouse that wasn't in our yard. When she finished, the tears were new, not only loss, but relief, that her father had thought past the horizon and left a light. Would you come with me, Lily? Alexander asked. I won't promise perfect, but I promise safe. She looked at Sarah, at the kind foster mother waiting in the doorway, at Mr. Buttons, then back at the man her father had trusted. Do you have a house? With books, he said. And a yard for a garden if we want one. Do you have a seat for me in your car? A corner of his mouth lifted. Installed this afternoon. Small detail, big truth. Victoria had made her ride with a belt too big for her bones. Alex had asked what a 7-year-old needs before he ever saw her face. They drove through rain-washed streets toward a home lit like welcome. The guest room wasn't a child's room yet, but it was clean, warm, and waiting, fresh sheets, a lamp, a little stack of books that looked like they wanted to be read aloud. Tomorrow we'll make it yours, he said. Tonight you sleep. In the dark, Lily whispered, do you think Daddy knew she'd leave me? Alex sat in a chair near the door like a quiet guard dog. I think your dad was very smart, he said. Smart enough to make sure you'd never be alone. Lily pressed the letter under her pillow the way other children had treasure and fell asleep to the soft sound of a house remembering how to hold laughter. Morning brought cereal, a gentle rhythm, and an ache that hurt less when someone poured orange juice without being asked. 3 days brought small things that are not small, clothes that fit, hair washed and braided without a tug, a kitten adopted from the shelter because love should have paused sometimes. Lily named him Whiskers and gave him a job, keep watch while I'm at school, sleep by my feet, purr when I forget how. But the 4th day brought a new knock, official, sharp, and a woman with a clipboard and a court order stepped inside. Janet Morrison, Child Protective Services. A welfare check, private interview required. Alexander breathed through the insult and stepped back. Lily's answers were clear and uncoached. She liked the kitten, the books, the feeling that she didn't have to keep secrets to stay safe. Had anyone touched her wrong? No, only hugs like her father used to give. Did she want to return to her stepmother? The color drained from her face. She took off her ring and laughed that Daddy was a fool, Lily said. She left me in the rain. The clipboard woman's eyes shifted, and something in her posture softened from bureaucrat to person. Thank you, Lily, she said. That's very brave. On the porch, she told Alexander in a low voice, in 15 years, I've rarely seen a child stabilize so quickly. Keep doing what you're doing. My report will say she's thriving. But the system that had failed to see Victoria coming was not done with them yet. Alexander's attorney, Michael Harrison, called with news welded to warning. Victoria had filed an emergency petition claiming he'd kidnapped Lily with forged papers. She'd hired a shark with a tie, Thomas Brennan, and spun a press story about a rich man stealing a widow's child. Alexander stared out a window where Lily was teaching Whiskers to chase sunbeams. He felt the familiar heat of a boardroom fight rise, but this had nothing to do with mergers, this was breath, bone, a girl learning to laugh again. What's our path? He asked. We go on offense, Michael said. Anne. Alex, we pulled her history. It's worse than we thought. The private investigator Michael trusted, Sarah Walsh, arrived with a folder thick as an alibi and colder than a toe tag. 4 marriages, not 3. First husband, David Chin, heart attack at 35, no prior cardiac history, policy pays out $500,000. Second, Robert Klein, single car accident, brake lines inconclusive, payout $750,000. Third, Marcus Webb, he lived and wanted to talk. On the recorder, his voice carried the weary clarity of a man who had walked out of a maze by luck and now mapped it for strangers. Victoria had been charm poured into a glass until the glass cracked, then she became obsession, wills, beneficiaries, just-in-case conversations about sudden death. Marcus had tried to warn James when he heard her engagement news. Grief, gratitude, and hope make a potent blindness. James had wanted to believe that love had come back for him and his little girl. He married the story, the ending came later. Sarah slid forward medical charts and hospital notes. James's decline didn't track with his diagnosis, it zigged where it should have slowed, crashed where it should have plateaued. Inpatient stays brought improvement, home with Victoria brought collapse. A stolen prescription pad. A medication that accelerates heart failure for patients like James. The pattern was a siren. Alexander's hands curled on the desk. He could negotiate volatile markets and hostile takeovers without flinching. This was different. This was the arithmetic of malice tallied on a child's life. His phone buzzed again, another shove from the other side. Brennan had filed a motion painting Alexander as an aggressive magnate with ulterior motives, sprinkling innuendo like glitter meant to stick. Sarah Walsh closed one file and opened another. It'll backfire. Your reputation reads clean, years of donations to children's causes, staff who speak of you like you're subversively kind. We'll use character as evidence. Also, Children's Haven is willing to testify. They say your money came with Saturday volunteering and no cameras. The next knock was not a surprise but still set the house on edge. Reporters. Microphones. A neighbor with a camera phone. Alexander tightened security. He explained to Lily in language that didn't lie. Some people think only blood makes family, he said as they built a jigsaw puzzle with a missing corner. We're going to show a judge that love and safety count more. Will I have to see her? Lily asked, eyes on the edge pieces. Probably, he said. But I'll be there. And so will people whose job is to keep you safe. Promise? Promise. In the days before the hearing, the house found small rituals, cocoa at dusk, reading before bed, whiskers draped over Lily's ankles as if he'd decided to be a blanket. Alexander learned braids, Lily learned that grown-ups could apologize without excuses. The night before court, she left Mr. Buttons on the dresser and tucked her father's letter beneath her pillow. For bravery, she told herself out loud. For truth. Judge Patricia Coleman ran a courtroom like a lighthouse, steady beam, no patience for rocks pretending to be water. The room buzzed, press rose, curious faces, the hush that comes before hard truths. Victoria sat in careful black, the handkerchief choreography of a woman who knew where the cameras were. Thomas Brennan's opening dripped with indignation, a grieving widow, a child ripped from home by a wealthy opportunist, a moment of poor judgment at a funeral miscast as cruelty. Michael Harrison rose with none of the butter and all of the knife. He called it what it was, abandonment in rain, a pattern of predation, and, if the court was willing to hear it, murder threaded through marriage. Officer Sarah Martinez took the stand first. Her testimony was plain and devastating, the 20 in a puddle, the changed locks, the words no adult should say to a child at a grave. In 20 years, she said, I haven't seen deliberate cruelty this clean. Brennan tried grief as a solvent, it didn't lift the stain. Janet Morrison followed, welfare check, thriving child, fear at the mention of the stepmother. Then Marcus Webb, steady in a suit that fit like a new spine, described insurance talk disguised as pillow talk, isolation, and a browser history that searched for poisons that don't leave fingerprints. Objection. Overruled. Relevance, character and intent. The forensic pathologist mapped the last months of James's life with a pointer and lines that rose in the hospital and dropped at home. A prescription he never should have taken. A doctor who swore his prescription pad had gone missing. The word poisoning did not echo, it landed. Then came the witness with the smallest shoes. Judge Coleman met with Lily privately first, ensuring the ask would not break what it meant to protect. When Lily took the stand, she wore a blue dress and the courage of a child who'd been believed for 3 weeks straight. Mr. Button sat in her lap like a small, serious juror. Michael didn't lead, he invited. Lily spoke truth like a bell, no dramatics, only details. Locked in her room when guests visited. Dinners forgotten unless she asked twice. The funeral ring pocketed before the ground settled. Do you want to live with Mr. Stone? Yes, please, she said. He reads stories and doesn't yell. He got me a kitten and a seat for the car. Brennan wisely kept his questions short and neutral. The room exhaled when she stepped down and tucked herself between Michael and Alexander, holding Mr. Buttons with one hand and Alex's sleeve with the other. Victoria took the stand last, silk voice, crushed velvet pauses, carefully rationed tears. Michael's questions moved from gentle to precise, pinning dates to policies, signatures to transfers, mourning to money. Offshore accounts warming before the death certificate cooled. I was protecting our future, she snapped, the mask slipping. James was weak. Ill. So you took control, Michael said quietly. Because he was dying. He was dying anyway, she returned, too fast, too loud. The silence afterward was not mercy, it was recognition. Judge Coleman called a recess that sounded like a verdict clearing its throat. When court reconvened, the pretense had the thinness of wet paper. Closing arguments were brief because the child in blue had already said what the law needed to hear. Judge Coleman spoke with the gravity of someone who knows rulings can be a kind of shelter. The best interests of the child govern, she began. Mrs. Matthews's actions, abandonment, financial maneuvering, and testimonial admissions, demonstrate unfitness. Mr. Stone has provided stability, care, and safety. Permanent custody is granted to Alexander Stone. No contact from Mrs. Matthews pending criminal proceedings. Lily's hand found Alex's. Forever and always, she whispered. Forever and always, he said, making a promise with both his mouth and his life. Reporters shouted as they left the courthouse. Alexander shielded Lily, guided her to the car where Maria waited with whiskers and a small carrier and relief in her eyes. They drove away into sunlight shaped like hope, until Alexander checked the rearview and saw a black sedan following. In the back seat sat Victoria, rage stripping her beautiful face down to the bone. The car peeled off before they could confirm the plate, but the message was the same one predators always send: I don't believe in endings. That night the house became a fortress, not because fear won, but because love plans. Security upgraded, routes adjusted, neighbors briefed without gossip. At 2 a.m., the phone rang, a voice like a knife wrapped in silk. Accidents happen to children, Victoria hissed. You think you've won. You haven't. Alexander reported, reinforced. He checked on Lily, sleeping French braid neat, hand on whiskers, letter on the nightstand. He sat in the hallway in an old wooden chair and listened to the quiet like a man who would break it in a second if needed. Morning brought absence, Victoria gone from her hotel, a note left behind, some promises must be kept. The manhunt ran hot, the house ran calm by design. Lily went to school with a discreet bodyguard and a lunch note that said proud of you. See you at 3. She asked one evening while sorting puzzle pieces by color, why do we need so many guards? Because some people don't stop when they should, Alexander said. And our job is to give them no chance. Like in the movie where the police catch the bad guy? Exactly like that. A Tuesday in November answered the question. Detective Rodriguez called at dawn, they'd found her. Miami airport, fake passport, a vial in her bag, printed plans that were not just escape but return. Federal custody. No bail. The line went still enough for gratitude to gather. When Lily came home from school, Alexander explained that the monster had been caged. Lily's first question was the exact right one. Can we go to the park without guards? Yes, he said, and made good on it within 48 hours. They ate sandwiches on a blanket. Lily chased leaves. Whiskers, illegally, wore a small harness and looked offended by geese. 9 months later, a judge signed what the heart had already decided. Lily Matthews became Lily Stone, and Alexander stopped being guardian and started being dad in every way the law could spell. The celebration was small, chosen family only. Officer Sarah Martinez brought a stuffed police dog with a badge stitched on. Janet Morrison arrived with a smile that reached the parts of her job that rarely get sunlight. Michael Harrison made a toast that turned into a vow to spend more hours on cases that saved people instead of companies. Sarah Walsh raised a glass to stubborn truths and to the dead who still protect the living. Lily stood on a chair and read a note she'd practiced. "Thank you for helping me find my new daddy," she said, voice steady. "I think my first daddy is happy because I am safe." Grown men looked at their shoes for a minute because sometimes tears are private. After cake, Lily handed Alexander a card with marker hearts. "Thank you for choosing me when someone else didn't." He put it on the refrigerator and told himself he'd never move it, even when magnets got old and photos got many. But survival stories deserve sequels that help other people survive. With Lily's inheritance protected and Alexander's resources substantial, they launched the James Matthews Foundation, a machine built to do for other children what one letter and one promise had done for Lily. Legal clinics for guardianship traps. Emergency placements that prioritized kinship when safe. Investigations where systems had shrugged. Training for police on the red flags of marriage predators. The numbers began to tell a story worth reading twice. Hundreds reunited with safe relatives, hundreds adopted into homes that deserve the word. Thousands represented, none alone. The first week after the custody ruling taught the house to breathe quietly. Security cameras hummed like distant bees. A second keypad went in beside the back door. The route to school changed twice, then a third time when a black sedan idled too long near the bakery and Lily flinched at its tinted windows. Alexander kept his voice level, his hands steady, because when a child is learning to be unafraid, the adults around her have to practice not shaking in public. He took meetings at the dining table now, laptop open where coloring pencils used to live from the night before. Michael Harrison's square of video glowed with new strategies, a civil protection order that had teeth, motions to seal certain records, a quiet ask to the judge to allow Lily's first name to remain but shorten her last on school rosters until the criminal process did its work. On a second screen, P.I. Sarah Walsh unscrolled threads, shell companies with pretty names and ugly purposes, insurance policies that became obituaries, bank transfers moving like birds before a storm. "Same signature pattern," Sarah said, tapping a spreadsheet. "Victoria changes her last flourish every few years but keeps the pressure points. Whoever taught her forgery taught her like a piano, muscle memory." She clicked again. "There's a man who paid for her last 2 flights under a business card that doesn't exist." Name pops up as Lyle Crane. No tax record, no lease, but he owns a storage unit in a facility that has never had a police call. That's either perfect risk management or a hole we're about to fill. Alexander listened and nodded, but his gaze drifted down the hallway where a child's laugh rolled like a new language. Lily had discovered the comfort of the pantry, its shelves like a fort, and had named the good crackers, the secret ones, and the social ones for visitors who might be nervous in a kitchen. She had also named the 3 cats. Of course, Whiskers still wore the crown, but the new siblings accepted their fates with naps. When Officer Sarah Martinez stopped by for a welfare check that wasn't required but felt right, Lily ran to her with a drawing. "This is you," she announced, presenting a stick figure in a blue uniform holding a very round cat. Martinez laughed, a sound that carried like sunlight, then crouched to eye level. "How's second grade?" "Good," Lily said solemnly. "I have a friend named Nora who brought me a bracelet and I brought her a sticker and we both said we were brave." She glanced at the officer's notepad. "Are you writing that we're brave?" "I am," Martinez said, and she was not lying. The smear campaign found oxygen that week, the way smoke finds a house even when windows are shut. Tabloids discovered Alexander's net worth and paired it with photos of a little girl in a blue dress to make a picture ugly enough to sell. An anchor smiled through practiced concern and asked, "Is wealth power when it comes to children?" Alexander muted the television and put a bowl of cut strawberries on the coffee table like a quiet vote for reality. "We can turn it off," he told Lily. "We only have to watch the things that help us be kind or smart." Lily glanced at the screen, then back at her book. "Can we watch cat videos again?" He nodded. A family chooses its weather. The second week was when the house learned to be a fortress without looking like one. The new head of security, an ex-school resource officer who knew how to blend protection with kindness, walked Lily through the system like a game. Green light means the house is awake with you. Red means the house is asleep and wants you to whisper. This button calls me. This one calls the police. You never touch the yellow one, that's for grown-ups only. Lily took the small laminated card and hung it on a hook she could reach. She practiced the routine at bedtime, letter under pillow, night light on low, 3 breaths in a row slow enough to fight the memory of rain. The house and I will take turns, she told Whiskers. I'll sleep and it can watch. At 2:38 on a Thursday morning, the gate camera caught a shadow. It wasn't Victoria. Later, they would learn Victoria knew better than to appear where a lens could love her too much, but someone wearing a cap with a delivery logo that didn't match any active route. The man walked up, tapped the bell once, left a small box, and stepped back into a car whose plates didn't belong to it. The guard on overnight rotation didn't open the gate. He called it in. They watched the box on the screen like it was speaking in a language none of them wanted to learn. The bomb squad came gentle, curious as scientists, and found only a music box inside, a ballerina who spun with a tinny lullaby if you wound her. But the song was exactly the one Lily's real mother used to hum, recorded on a cassette and fed through cheap gears. Someone had been close enough to remember. Alexander made a decision he hadn't wanted to make yet. We're going to the safe house, he told the team, voice a register lower than usual. He said it like he was saying they were going to the park. He said it while making eggs so the smell of breakfast would build walls around the conversation. Lily looked up from her stool. Is a safe house like when you make a fort with chairs and blankets? Exactly, he said. Just bigger. The safe house had been furnished for anonymity, neutral furniture, framed prints without opinions, but within an hour it had Lily in it, which is to say it had color and crumbs and a kitten investigating under beds. Alexander stood with Martinez and the security lead by the sliding door that let afternoon spill into the yard. We have 3 prongs, Martinez said. 1. We get a warrant for the storage unit. 2. We work the phones, who's buying what, where, and how often. 3. We bring Lily's world in closer, school and therapy through the same door for a little while, so our circle is tight. Therapy. The word made Alexander feel both grateful and younger than his bones, like a boy asking for directions. The therapist was a woman with a laugh that made even the cats sit down. She spoke to Lily the way good gardeners speak to soil, gentle, patient, trusting that what is planted will answer when the sun asks. Lily drew feelings, then gave them jobs. Anger wears a helmet and carries a whistle. It blows when someone gets too close. Sadness sits in a beanbag and hugs Mr. Buttons until its heartbeat slows. What about fear? The therapist asked. Lily thought for a long moment. Fear wears sneakers, she said finally. So it can run if it needs to, but mostly it stays to watch. Meanwhile, Sarah Walsh and Michael built something ruthless out of facts. The storage facility manager's pride in perfect records became a key. No police calls in 10 years? Michael asked, friendly as spring. Not once? The man brightened. Not once. Then today, Sarah said kindly, we'll break your streak. The warrant took the morning, the lock took a minute. Unit 217 smelled like rubber and old paper. In the neat stacks were things that made the skin around the heart pull tight, photos clipped from papers, travel stubs, 3 overlapping calendars with different colored dots. One wall was a storyboard of other people's lives, lines connecting couples to payouts to acquisitions of properties whose addresses matched mailboxes Sarah had already mapped. What does blue mean? Michael asked, pointing to a set of dates. Sarah watched how the dots marched. Blue is birthdays, she said. Green is hospital admissions. Red is, she didn't finish. It didn't need finishing. There were also 2 sketch maps of Alexander's house, one old, one updated, with a circle drawn where a child's room would be now. In the cardboard lid of a file box, someone had practiced a signature over and over until it looked like second nature. Detective Rodriguez joined them just before lunch, read the room in a glance, and called for a second team to bag and tag. He lifted a plastic sleeve with a passport photo that belonged to no one it was assigned to. "She's still moving," he said. "But she's moving with help." He looked at Sarah. "Can you make me Lyle Crane?" She nodded. "Give me 12 hours and a printer." Back at the safe house, Alexander found himself learning new fatherhood chores he hadn't expected, being a co-teacher for math that relied on number lines shaped like caterpillars, being a PE coach for jumping jacks that don't sound like elephants, being the person who could clap on beat when a 7-year-old made a song out of spelling words. He set alarms on his phone to remember the sound of play. Between modules he emailed investors with a message that felt strange and honest: "I will be away in sprints. You will not be surprised. We will still hit the numbers. My daughter is learning to trust the calendar." Most of them replied with thumbs up or silence. One wrote, "Good. Bring the same focus back." Alexander replied, "This is the focus." The smear machine tried another angle, as smear machines will. A grainy photo from 5 years ago surfaced, Alexander leaving a gala with a woman who smiled the way people smile when photographers want something from their faces. The caption did what captions always do when they aim at a person and mean his reputation. Michael called before Alexander had to ask. "It won't stick. It doesn't even come near Lily. They're throwing mud to see who gets dirty." "She could see it," Alexander said quietly. "And she's just learning that adults can be true." "Then say out loud what's true," Michael answered. "Kids are better at separating noise from signals than we are." That night, after Lily fell asleep in a small mountain of cats, Alexander sat at the table with the letter James had written. He unfolded it the way you unfold a map you've used enough to know where the folds already are. "Ask Alex about the treehouse we built in the neighbor's yard." Alexander smiled into the paper. He texted Sarah Martinez. "How hard is it to get lumber delivered without a permit flag in this city?" She replied with a laughing emoji, and then, 5 minutes later, a list of vendors who owed her favors for reasons she would never put in a text. He added a note to the margin of the letter: "We'll do it right this time, brother. On our side of the fence. Strong enough to hold a picnic." In the morning, a delivery arrived that wasn't a trap and felt like a promise: wood, brackets, a bucket of bolts heavy enough to pin down wind. "What's that?" Lily asked, nose pressed to the window. "A project," Alexander said. "We measure twice and cut once, and we invite people we trust to climb it when it's done." "Even Miss Martinez?" "Especially Miss Martinez." "Even Nora?" "If she asks nicely." "Even Whiskers?" "He'll invite himself." Lily grinned. "He thinks rules are for people." By noon, the yard sounded like intention, the hammer rhythm of building, the murmur of instructions, the soft scuff of small sneakers staying on the patio because boundaries were part of the plan. At 3, a neighbor's boy wandered to the fence with his bike helmet crooked and his curiosity straight. Alexander waved him over, looked to the guard at the corner of the yard, got a subtle nod, and said, "Next week, when we paint it, bring a brush." Lily watched the exchange the way flowers watch light. Sarah Walsh called as the sun slid. "We have our first good echo," she said. "Your friend Lyle tried to buy burner phones with cash at a kiosk in the next county and used a discount card connected to a grocery store in his alias. The clerk liked me. We're connecting that card to a motel 2 exits over. Night manager says the woman he's with wears scarves that look expensive even when she's pretending they're not. They check in late, check out before breakfast. She never lets the staff in. We pull the camera in an hour. Is Lily safe to sleep at home tonight?" Alexander asked, instinct beating arguments. "Yes," Sarah said. "But keep 2 guards at the rear. And let the system make noise if a squirrel even thinks about philosophy." They did not sleep at home. At 9:40, the doorbell camera at the main house pinged with a face none of them expected, the elderly man from the cemetery, Harold, the cane tapping, the kind eyes. He'd found the address from a newspaper that had not, apparently, listened to Michael's sealing motion yet. He held a foil-wrapped parcel in gloved hands. "It's bread," he told the intercom. "My wife always said grief needs bread." The guard recognized him and, after a call to Martinez, opened the gate. Harold set the loaf down, smiled toward the lens as if it were a person, and shuffled back to his car. Inside, the team cut the package with a knife held like a question. "Only bread. Warm. Sent the shape of kitchens." "We'll send him a thank you," Alexander said, and then realized his throat was tight. Goodness, in dangerous weeks, can feel like an ambush too. At 11, Rodriguez texted a single line, "We have her on the tape." The motel camera caught Victoria from profile, scarf low, sunglasses high, a habit of turning her face at the exact moment anyone else turned theirs. But surveillance is a math that multiplies. Rodriguez sent stills. Sarah overlaid them with older photos. Michael attached the old insurance claim images like puzzle corners. They could prove movement now, not just motive. "Arrest?" Alexander asked. "Not yet," Rodriguez said. "We want the man with her, and the card that pays for the rooms, and the trunk that has more than luggage. We want to close the circle." The next day, Lily's second-grade class logged into the safe house living room for reading time. The teacher, a woman with a sweater that had apples on it without apology, smiled at Lily through the screen. "You can read from home or from school," she said to all of them. "Either way, your voice counts the same." Lily held her book up, Charlotte's Web, and read the first paragraph without looking up. When she finished, there was a small explosion of claps on tiny microphones. After class, Alexander asked, "How'd it feel?" "Like my stomach was brave," she said, and then added with the seriousness of a surgeon, "and like the words had shoes." By afternoon, the storage unit had given them more. Sarah found a ledger folded into the binding of a false bottom box. It listed names, dates, and short notes that made even seasoned officers go quiet. D. Chin, easy heart. R. Klein, night was enough. J. Matthews, medication is scheduled. The last entry had no initials. It had a drawing instead, a teddy bear with buttons for eyes and a small crown above its head. Sarah took a photo and sent it to Martinez and Alexander at the same time. The caption was a question no one wanted to type: "Is this meant to be a trophy or a threat?" That evening, the safe house filled with people who made rooms feel safe just by standing in them. Martinez with her steady attention, Rodriguez with a map, pins like tiny stars, the security lead with a schedule that put bodies where fear imagined gaps. They talked through scenarios: a car tailing too close, a stranger at the school perimeter, a phone call Lily should hand to an adult the second a voice turned wrong. Lily listened from the hallway at first, then stepped into the light with the certainty of someone whose life is being planned around her, not over her. "If someone says my name in a voice like Candy," she said, "I will not go." "Correct," Martinez said, not hiding the pride in her eyes. "You will walk toward the loudest adult and say, 'That person is not my adult.'" Lily nodded. "And whiskers will scratch their socks." "That too," the officer said solemnly. Near midnight, the house finally felt like it might sleep. Alexander carried a basket of laundry down the hall because ordinary work is a spell. He paused at the doorway of Lily's room, watched the rise and fall that had become his favorite proof. On the nightstand, James's letter lay open like it was listening too. Alexander reached to turn it gently so the crease wouldn't weaken, and that was when the phone on his belt buzzed with a message that made his bones know before his mind did. It was from the guard at the main house. Back gate open for 3 seconds. Closed itself. No camera movement. Sensors read normal. We think the loop was bypassed and unbypassed. Another message, 3 dots that felt like a heartbeat. Found a single footprint in the wet soil by the hydrangeas. Small. Narrow. Heel too sharp for a runner. Photograph attached. He stepped into the hallway and met Martinez there, as if she had been pulled by the same string. "We move," she said, already on her radio. Rodriguez replied before she finished. "Team out front. Do not return to the main house. Meet at Block 7. Sarah's text landed over theirs like a third voice in a chorus. Motel just went dark. Power cut to that block only. Lyle's alias phone stopped pinging. They're moving. Alexander looked back at the bed, at a child who had named her Fear and given it sneakers, at a letter that believed in tomorrow. He felt the shape of decision settle in his chest, the way right choices sometimes feel heavy because they are made of metal and bolts and the weight of other people's breaths. He lifted the basket and set it down, reached for the go-bag by the door, and spoke in the kindest whisper he had. "Lily," he said, touching her shoulder. Her eyes opened without panic, like a student answering roll. "Time to take a little ride, Braveheart." "Are we running?" she asked around a yawn. "No," he said, smiling because the truth deserved a good face. "We're arriving early." He carried her while she held Mr. Buttons by the paw. Whiskers, insulted to be left out of a mission, slunk into the carrier with the resigned dignity of a king who had seen too much. The convoy moved without light, with precision. The city lay like a sleeping animal, the freeway empty enough to hear tires hum. Halfway to the rendezvous, Rodriguez's voice came over the radio, too calm to be anything but urgent. "We just got eyes on the sedan. 2 occupants. Eastbound. If they exit at Halcyon, they beat you to Block 7 by 4 minutes." Martinez pressed the pedal in a way that made air lean. "Then we won't go to Block 7, she said. "We'll go where they think we won't." "Where?" Alexander asked, already checking for second plans in his head. "To the place grief learned bred," Martinez said, eyes on the road. "Harold's address is on the thank you note you insisted on hand-delivering tomorrow. They won't expect us to hide where kindness lives." Alexander looked at Lily, who was awake now and watching streetlights pass like commas. "Is this the part where we're brave again?" she asked. "This is the part," he said, "where Brave puts on its sneakers." Ahead, the freeway sign for Halcyon flashed green, and the black sedan cut across 2 lanes to take it. Martinez did not. She stayed straight, into the kind of dark that only lets go when a porch light turns on, somewhere, in a street where a cane might tap and a door might open to say, "Come in, child," and mean it. Behind them, at the main house, the footprint near the hydrangeas gathered a small pool of rainwater until it reflected the porch light like an eye. The camera didn't blink. The gate didn't complain. Somewhere in a motel room cooling without power, a scarf lay folded on a bedspread like a snake pretending to sleep. And the music box, the one with the ballerina, spun once in the evidence locker because someone had jostled the shelf, one half-turn that clicked and stopped, as if it had decided to save the rest of its song for morning. Harold's porch light was already on when the convoy turned into his quiet street, as if the night had phoned ahead. The old man stood in the doorway in a cardigan and house slippers, cane tucked under his arm like a gentleman's umbrella. When he saw Lily, he didn't make a sound that would scare a skittish animal, he simply stepped aside and let kindness make the introduction. "Come in, little one," he said. "The kettle's honest and the chairs don't gossip." Inside, Officer Martinez moved like a pianist who knows every key. 2 plainclothes officers slipped to the back windows. The security lead put a second deadbolt on a door that had never needed one. Alexander set the cat carrier down and watched Whiskers occupy the sofa with royal certainty. Lily pressed her palm to the letter in her pocket, then to Harold's warm sleeve. "Your bread was brave," she told him. Harold blinked fast and nodded. "So is yours." On the radio, Rodriguez's voice came low and sure. The black sedan had indeed taken the Halcyon exit, then circled Block 7 like a shark looking for its own reflection. A decoy SUV eased into view, another drifted behind. Sarah Walsh's text arrived on Martinez's phone a breath later, "Motel power's back. They're on the move. Lyle's car just bought gas 3 miles south of you." Harold's wife had been gone 5 years, but her hands were still in the kitchen, tea tins labeled in neat blue ink, a jar of sugar cubes shaped like tiny hearts, a chipped plate saved for guests who needed it. "This one," he said, setting the plate near Lily as if obeying an old instruction. She smiled without asking why, then lined up the cubes like checkers and pushed 2 toward Whiskers, who inspected them gravely and declined. Headlights crawled across the curtains and paused. Martinez touched the radio twice. 2 blocks over, a unit killed its engine and listened. Rodriguez counted numbers that meant streets and angles. Sarah's voice cut in, "They're splitting. He's going on foot, she's in the car alone. Don't let the sedan reach that cul-de-sac, there's no clean exit." The room leaned into the air. Harold sat down carefully, as if not to break it. When the knock came, it wasn't at the front. It was at the side gate, a small stuttering sound like someone tapping a pencil in class. The security lead lifted 2 fingers, an officer moved to the mudroom. "Who is it?" Harold called, the way men born between wars learn to call without fear. A woman's voice answered, the sweetness stretched thin. "Sir, is this where Mr. Stone is staying? There's a misunderstanding, and a child who belongs with her family." Lily's hand found Alexander's. He felt the old anger rise, the quiet, stainless kind, and set it down beside the kettle where it couldn't spill. Martinez stepped into the hall and spoke through the wood like it was only a veil. "Mrs. Matthews, you are under an active no-contact order. Leave the property." Silence. Then the click of a heel against stone, backing away or bracing to run. The radio popped. Rodriguez again, breathless in a way only tread can earn. "We have Lyle at the fence." Knife dropped. "Cuffs on." A second voice, another officer, tighter, sedan turning. "She's heading north." Martinez opened the side door fast enough to startle the air and found only the shape of perfume and a smear of tire on wet curb. They didn't chase from Harold's driveway, they shepherded. The convoy rolled out with practiced calm, their car in the middle, uninteresting from the outside, impossible to reach on the inside. 2 streets over, a patrol car lit its blues, then caught them, a firefly's decoy. At the end of the block, Harold stood under his porch light and held up his hand like a blessing. Lily waved back with all 5 fingers, the way small people say thank you to large moments. The trap closed 3 miles north where Rodriguez had predicted she couldn't refuse a straightaway. The black sedan took it too fast, found a cruiser sideways across the lanes, and realized too late that the day's geometry had been redrawn. She braked, then bolted, heels on asphalt, scarf in her fist, eyes doing the old trick of searching for angles. Martinez caught her at the median with a calm that didn't need volume. The vial in the purse glittered like a lie in good lighting. When the cuffs clicked, Victoria looked up with that flat, theatrical pity she saved for cameras. "You people don't understand what love requires." Martinez didn't answer. She had learned years ago that you don't argue with weather, you build shelters. "You're done," she said, and meant the long version. They took Lily home to the safe house just before dawn, that soft blue hour when even cities forgive each other. She slept until noon, then woke to the sound of hammers, gentler now, finishing work rather than defense. By evening, the treehouse had a floor and a railing exactly Lily's height, and a small brass plate near the ladder that read, "Built right, on our side, for James." Alexander ran his thumb over the letters. "He would have argued for a bigger ladder," he said. Lily pointed to the sky. "He wants snacks up there." The weeks that followed didn't feel like triumph, they felt like careful statements. Hearings. A trial where patterns finally spoke in chorus, policies, doctor pads, forged flourishes, and the ledger that had tried to hide inside a box. Lyle took a deal and a number. Victoria took the only sentence her story ever wanted. Reporters chased reactions like birds. Alexander chose silence except for one line outside the courthouse, "This is not a headline. This is a child's life. She is safe." Safety, it turned out, is not the absence of threat but the presence of people who keep showing up. The treehouse became a library of afternoons. Nora came over with a purple brush and learned the braid that survives recess. Martinez stopped by without her badge sometimes and let Whiskers pretend to arrest her shoelaces. Harold sent bread once a month because grief gets hungry again. Alexander learned to make pasta that wasn't an apology and to say no to meetings that mistook urgency for importance. The letter stayed by Lily's bed, its creases softening the way truths do when handled daily. On the channel, they told the story the way it deserved to be told, without gore, without spectacle, only the life-saving ordinariness of people who decided to be useful. Lily spoke last in the final cut, hands steady on the edge of the table. "Sometimes the people who were supposed to love us don't know how," she said. "That doesn't mean we aren't worth loving. It just means we have to find the right people." The comments filled with names of teachers, neighbors, uncles, coaches, a woman in line at a pharmacy, small rescues stitched into a larger quilt. Spring brought the first bloom in the graveyard garden, sunlight opening a flower beside James's name like a curtain. They watered, they weeded, they didn't hurry. On the walk back to the car, Lily looked up at Alexander with the kind of ease that has to be built plank by plank. "Are we home now?" she asked. "We're home," he said. "And tomorrow?" "Also home." She considered that and nodded as if she'd assigned a task to the day and expected it to comply. This is where we end, not because danger never learns new tricks, but because love has more. A father keeps a promise past breath. A child teaches fear to wear sneakers and watch instead of run. A house learns to breathe quietly and then to laugh loudly. And somewhere, in another town, a porch light goes on because a neighbor noticed and decided to open a door. If this story found you, let it send you looking, down your hallway, across your street, into your own past, until you see the place where your hands fit. Be the person who says, with a steady voice and a key that turns, "You're safe now. You're coming home with me."